All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Monday video. Every Monday, we do some kind of training topic or enrichment or behavior related in some way. And this month, since it's July and it's hot, we're working on sort of water based activities, bathing, grooming. Today, we're talking about how to introduce dogs to water who maybe don't like water or you haven't tried yet, but your dog's kind of sensitive. So you're worried about how they might react. Um, this is something I've been working on with my own dogs. None of them really uh, like naturally want to play in water, and so it's been a fun a fun adventure to find ways to make interacting with the water sort of more fun for them. And while I go through some of the examples today and videos, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them under wherever you're watching the video, and I'll get them and respond as soon as I can. All right, let's jump into slides. So, beginning water games for dogs who don't really like the water or are just fearful in general and you're not sure how they're going to do. All right, so I'll briefly talk about why we're bothering to do this at all. Why introduce our dogs to water? I'll show you some sort of baby steps we started with our dogs, and that might give you some ideas for working with your own dog. And then some more involved kind of games that we've been playing. I'll show you some video examples of those as well. All right, so why? Why are we bothering to do this? Obviously, some dogs just love water, and so finding ways for them to engage with or play in water as enrichment is can be really good for them. Now, if you have one of these dogs, you're probably not watching this video. So why else might we go to this trouble? Um, when it's hot, it can be difficult to get enough exercise and enrichment for your dog especially if you rely a lot on outdoor activities. Um, until recently, we lived down sort of in the Central Valley of California, well, near Sacramento, and in the summer, it's not really safe for dogs to be out for most of the day. It's really hot, and so finding ways to get them doing something during the day could be kind of tough. So if your dog can play in water, that gives you another option. There are also some sort of more practical applications um, for water-based play. You might want to increase your dog's comfort with being in water, being wet, maybe having water put on them. We're not going to talk about that today, but if they're more comfortable in water, then that makes your job easier when you are working on training for bathing. If you like to hike or camp or go to the beach with your dog and you'd like them to be comfortable going to get a drink or even taking a dip and cooling off in water, this will help. And then lately, I've also been testing out some different cooling gear for dogs, like we're trying out these cooling bandanas or like neck wraps right now with my dogs that you soak and then they retain that water and are supposed to cool down your dog, but it does involve putting something wet on your dog. So that's another area where comfort with being wet and with water can be helpful. All right, so getting started. This is really the hardest part for most of us with dogs that are just don't like water or just generally sensitive to new things. Getting them to even try that very first step. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that, and this really goes for all dogs, not just dogs that are fearful or who hate water. It's really important the dog always has a choice whether or not to get into the water or get wet. So, although I'm sure you've seen people do this, maybe you've done it yourself, but I wouldn't recommend putting your dog, like picking them up and putting them in the water or tossing them into the water. Don't spray them or pour water on them. Those are can be a good way to get your dog to hate the water or to be avoidant of you when you're near water. We want the dog to put themselves into the water if they want to. So we want them to choose it and have the choice to not get into the water or to leave the water at any time. At the beginning of training, I'll show you what I did with Pancake. It's a good idea to start with very little water, like really very little water, and I'll show you what I mean by that, or even no water in a pool, like say a kiddie pool that's dry. That's one of the ways that I started working with Pancake on this. Any way that you can incorporate your dog's very favorite things into this sort of water training and water games, that will help you make progress faster. It doesn't hurt to train on days that are hot so that the water might actually feel good to your dog. And if you've got a dog who is sensitive, or you think might be kind of sensitive to temperature of the water, and probably most dogs are to some degree, you might want to experiment a little bit with like cold water, room temperature water, maybe a little bit, warm it up a bit, and see if that makes the water more enticing to your dog. Some dogs might prefer cold water, but some dogs definitely do not. All right, so let's look at some video examples of Pancake learning to get into water on his own. All right, so just a little background. I have a couple different sort of containers I put water in for this training. This one is I can't actually remember what it's sold as. I think it might be like a bussing bin for restaurants or something, but I was using this for foot bath, so teach the dogs to go in to wash their feet off, and that involved water, of course. But we started out with just the bin like this. This is dry. There's no water in it. And then I have a piece of a yoga mat in there so that it's comfortable to step on. It's not slippery. And this is all hands off. I tossed some treats in there. He gets them. We're practicing getting in and out here. So I'll give a couple treats to him while he's in the bin, and then I toss a treat out so he gets out, and we can practice getting back in again. Now, if you've got a dog who is small, has 3 legs like Pancake, arthritic, or even just timid about climbing into things, you might want something with even lower sides than this. This is pretty low, but you can still see Pancake has to kind of hop over the lip. So that is something to think about. All right, so here he is eating his treats in his little bin. Once I got the kiddie pool up here, we did something similar. So here the pool is dry, and I have his very favorite food toys in here. So we just practiced getting in and out of the kiddie pool and having fun in it with no water. All right, here's a way to introduce water in a very tiny amount. So here the bin, again, that same bin he just practiced getting in and out of when it was dry. I'm tossing in some ice cube treats. So I just took a regular ice cube tray, put treats in the little boxes, put a little bit of water in, froze them. So now I have these little frozen treats, basically. And I'm tossing them into the dry bin. As these melt, they're going to get the mat a little bit damp. So this is a way to get really some moisture in there, but quite minimal. And these ice cube treats are pretty popular with all 3 of my dogs. They can crunch them, but okay, another way to introduce a very tiny amount of water. Here I just got the mat, that yoga mat, damp. And you'll see when he climbs out that his little paw prints, you can see his little wet paw prints on the concrete, but there's no real like standing water. So when I say start with very little water, this might be where you're starting. Those ice cubes on a dry mat, or this mat that's just a little bit damp. And otherwise, we're doing that same exercise. He got in, eating treats, and then he'll get out in a minute. All right, in the kiddie pool, same thing. I probably have a half an inch maybe of water in there, and I've got his favorite food toys still in there. You can keep using these kind of normal food dispensing toys in water as long as it's not too deep. At some point, this stuff is going to start floating. It'll be a little harder or it'll just sink and be be underwater, submerged. It'll be a little harder for your dog to manipulate, but this kind of shallow water with food toys was also really popular with all 3 of my dogs. All right, so those are some examples of how we got our dogs started with just, the idea of getting in and out of a pool or a bin with just a little bit of water in there. Now, where can you go from here? Well, there's probably endless possibilities, only limited by your imagination, but I'll show you some games we've been playing to encourage our dogs to have fun in water. And as we're doing this, as they become more comfortable, we're adding a little more water, so that they're actually getting more cooled off. The water washes sort of up more of their legs if that's something I want. I am working on bathing training with Pancake, and so I do want him to be comfortable in more water. So food toys in the pool, I just showed you. I'll show you some adjustments I made for when we added more water to the pool. Treat ice cubes, which you saw, those are pretty popular with my dogs, like I said. Floating treat cups, I'll show you examples of these. This is basically plastic items that will float and you can put treats on them. That's helpful when the water gets a little bit deeper. And so a lot of dogs aren't that comfortable sticking their nose into several inches of water to try to grab a treat on the bottom of the pool, but they'll get in to chase these floating treat cups. Treat bobbing. So those are treats that will float on their own that you can scatter across the water, and the dog can chase them around and usually grab them without sticking their nose too far into the water. And then if your dog really likes training, just tricks or whatever their favorite training exercises are, you can incorporate these into your water games training. Okay, let's see. Pancake. I think it's mostly Pancake in action here. Okay, so here's some treat bobbing, which I realize you can't actually see that well, but there are treats floating in the water. And now you can see we're up to a couple inches of water in the tub or in the pool. And he's just walking around trying to fish them out. Here's a couple examples of things I tried for floating sort of treat dispensers. This red thing is actually a piece of there's a dog puzzle called the brick, I think. If you have it, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is one of the sections or the treat holders from that I noticed might float. That brown circle there is just the top to like a food container. And you can see it gives the dog a little challenge because it does move around on the surface of the water, but it keeps the treat above water. And then I also tried an empty ice cube tray that worked pretty well. And that other thing there is that he just stepped on is the lid to the ice cube tray. All right, let me pause this. So Pancake did not really want this many toys at a time in his pool, but I took this freeze frame here just so I could briefly talk about some stuff we tried. As you get into more water and you're using food, the water can get kind of gross, especially if you're using something that will disintegrate in water like kibble. So some things I changed up here, you can see a lot of these are sort of normal food dispensing toys, but I've spread a little bit of peanut butter on them, which holds up a little better in the water. I also use bits of pill pockets, which don't get so mushy. They do get a little mushy, but they don't just totally fall apart like kibble does. I've got a licky mat stuck to the side of the pool with some peanut butter. I think I have little bits of pill pockets in these Westpaw topples. There's a feeding puzzle in the middle there that actually floats. So that's awesome. Yeah, anyway, you may recognize quite a few of these toys. So most of them I either have peanut butter on or have little bits of pill pockets because I got sick of changing the water constantly because it was getting filled with kibble mush. But having this much in there, Pancake didn't really want to get in. So I thinned that out a little bit. So here we are with, now there's some treat ice cubes in there. He's got that feeder puzzle that he's right next to right now. One of his favorite toys is that yellow Omega Paw Tricky Treat Ball, which I'll link to when I get the blog up. There he's working on the licky mat. Here he's working on the puzzle feeder. So we mixed this up and just tried a lot of different stuff. And here's some examples of doing fun training. So Pancake seemed to have most fun when I was kind of running, making this quick. We're doing easy tricks for him, sits and hand touches back in and out of the pool. This is also handy for later bath training. I think we're going to do he did some dancing here on his hind legs at some point. Yeah. So again, we're just incorporating stuff that's fun for him, already fun for him, into the pool training. And we're increasing, here we're working on down, which is one I want for bathing, so he's comfortable getting his belly wet. Yes. This video I wanted to mention just as a way to do opportunistic get in the water and move around in the water training. So when we hike in our neighborhood, we usually cross at least one stream. And sometimes we'll do a little extra training where we maybe cross back and forth. The dogs chase me and get treats on either side, or we'll do a little hand touch, a little sit. They aren't always willing to lie down depending on how deep. This is very cold. This is snow melt water, so it's quite cold. So here, Pancake's doing some hand touch. I think Juno always wants to be in on the action, so she's getting some hand touch there too. Here's Pancake again. So just a way to throw in some training if you happen to be somewhere with water and it's a sort of a depth and type of water your dog is comfortable going into. A lot of dogs like will cross streams and splash around in puddles no problem, and then you try to get them to go into a pool or a bathtub and they're like, nope. So this might be an in-between step, is doing some of this training in water they're already willing to go in, and then transferring this over to some very shallow water in your little kiddie pool or whatever it is you're going to use for training. All right. If you have any ideas or ways that you work with your dog in water now that you love, I'd love to hear them. You can comment under the video or, shoot us an email. But the take-home points from today that I want you guys to think about is, one, water gains, besides being just fun and good enrichment for hot days, can have these knock-on benefits in terms of increasing comfort in water, being helpful with bath training, using cooling products that need to be wet and then put on your dog, possibly crossing streams when you're hiking or enjoying the beach a little more. Please do not force your dog into the water. That will very often backfire. It doesn't always, and that's kind of a lot of times how practices that aren't ideal tend to persist in dog training. Is, well, my neighbor said he just threw his dog in the pool, now he loves the pool. Well, that's, lucky for him it turned out that way, but it's more like, if you get a good result in spite of taking an approach that wasn't great for your dog. So please don't, especially with your fearful dogs, do not force contact. Let them explore the water on their own, make it a positive experience, but always give them a choice. And then start with no water, probably for if you're going to be using a pool or a bin or something. I would get them comfortable going in and out of that thing with no water in it. And then your first steps may involve literally just having a damp mat or towel or something in there. Or like a couple splashes of water, but not even having the entire bottom of the pool or bin covered. So you really want to make it easy. All right, folks, here's all the ways to get more free stuff from us. Our blog, Instagram, YouTube channel, Facebook page, and group. And at the bottom there is the link for our monthly training membership, where you can get more content like this, but in more detail and with feedback on your training. So we'd love to see you there and work with you a little more one-on-one. If you have any questions, like I said, please post them under this video. Thanks for joining me today. I'm enjoying this water training with Pancake. It's something that wasn't at the top of the list until recently. I wouldn't say it's even at the top of the list now, but we now have the luxury of exploring it a little bit because there are other things that are more urgent that we're taking care of. So I hope you enjoy it too. And, maybe you'll discover that your shy dog or your fearful dog actually loves water. And how great would that be? All right, everybody. I will see you next week. Have a great week.